I was the weird kid. I'm not saying that for sympathy or to sound dramatic, it's just the truth. I was the kid who never fit into any typical box. I wasn't good at sports, I didn't care about being popular, and I didn't have any trophies to show off. But I had one thing that kept me going, an obsession. I was obsessed with creating. Not just creating for fun, but the kind of creating where you wake up thinking about it and fall asleep planning your next move. That kind of obsession doesn't make sense to most people, especially not when you're starting from scratch, when your ideas seem too different or too unrealistic to take seriously. I'd spend hours studying what makes something good. Not just good by normal standards, but good in the way that grabs attention, good in the way that sparks curiosity, good in the way that makes someone say, "Wait, how did they do that?" I didn't have access to the best gear, I didn't have money to throw around, and most of the time I didn't even know what I was doing. But what I had was time, hunger, and the willingness to sit with an idea until it was good enough to make someone care. And when you have that relentless drive, you're already way ahead of the game. See, here's the part no one tells you. Being weird is your advantage, because weird is just another word for original. Weird is what happens when your brain doesn't want to settle for the usual. Weird means you're chasing something deeper, something less obvious. When I started working on my first few videos, I didn't think about the audience. I thought about how to make it better than the last one. That was the game. That still is the game. And that mind set this deep focus. This internal fire, it's what separates someone who's experimenting with creativity from someone who lives it every day. Most people wait to be told they're good before they go all in. They want someone to validate them, give them permission, or show them a sign. But if you're the weird kid, you don't need a sign. You already know. You feel it. You have this itch that just won't leave you alone until you build something, until you bring that strange idea in your head into the real world and say, "Look, I made this." Even if it flops. Even if no one gets it. Even if you're scared that it'll never be enough. That fear, by the way, never goes away completely. It doesn't matter how much you grow or how far you come. There's always that small voice in your head that wonders if this is the one that won't work. But you learn to use that fear, you turn it into energy, you use it as fuel. That's what creativity really is, using everything, even the doubt, even the failures, even the parts of you that don't fit in to build something that matters. That's what the weird kids do. We take the noise inside our heads, the parts we were told are too much or not enough, and we turn them into our greatest tools. You know what's funny? The world doesn't even know what it wants until the weird kid shows them. Nobody was asking for the first video that made you laugh so hard you had to rewatch it 10 times. Nobody was demanding the first art piece that made you stop scrolling, but someone made it. Someone ignored the fact that it didn't make sense yet and just did it anyway. That's the magic of being the weird kid. You're not following a formula, you're writing it. You're not competing in someone else's game, you're building your own, and it's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard when you're just starting and no one sees what you see. It's hard when people laugh or ignore you or think you're wasting your time. It's hard when your ideas feel too big for your current skill set, too ambitious for your resources. But you keep going because deep down you know what most people forget: everything starts small. Every massive, world-changing idea started with one person in a room, tinkering, failing, trying again. Every trend that dominates the internet today was once an idea that sounded too weird to work. And while everyone else is trying to fit in, trying to look like they know what they're doing, the weird kids are failing forward. They're taking swings, getting messy, and figuring it out in real time. That's why they win, because they're not afraid of being seen as amateurs. They're not afraid of doing 100 bad versions to get to the one good one. They're not in it for quick likes or instant praise. They're in it for the process, for the rush of building something from nothing. That's what separates creators from consumers: the ability to look at a blank page, a blank screen, a blank canvas and say, "Let's make something wild." I want to talk directly to you now, the kid who's sketching ideas during class, who stays up late editing, who's working on a project no one knows about. You're not behind, you're not wasting time. You're doing the hard part, the invisible work. The years where no one is clapping yet, where no one even knows your name. That's where it all starts. If you can love creating when no one's watching, if you can show up again and again without applause, if you can treat failure as part of the process instead of a sign to stop, then you've already got what most people never develop. Because what makes a creative legend isn't just talent, it's obsession. It's stubbornness. It's the refusal to quit even when everything looks like it's not working. I've seen so many talented people stop before they had a chance to break through. Not because they weren't good, but because they didn't believe weird could win. But it can, it does. Every day, some kid somewhere is uploading a video, dropping a track, releasing an app, and starting something massive. Not because they had all the answers, but because they trusted the process. I'll tell you this, the people you look up to, the ones who are killing it now, they were the weird ones once too. They were the kids who didn't get invited to the cool table. They were the ones who spent hours learning something no one thought mattered. They were told it wouldn't work, that they should pick something safer, something smarter, but they didn't listen, and thank God they didn't. Because if they had, we wouldn't have the stories, the platforms, the movements that inspire us today. Every innovation, every disruption, every creative leap, it started with someone being weird enough to believe they could do it differently. So if you're that person right now, if you feel out of step with everyone around you, if you've got an idea that won't leave you alone, if you're scared but also excited out of your mind, that's the sign. That's the fuel, that's the beginning of everything. Don't waste it. Don't wait for someone to give you a stage. Build your own. Start today. Start with what you have. You don't need more resources. You need more resilience. You don't need more likes. You need more reps. You don't need permission. You need to believe that weird just means early, that different just means ahead of your time, because the future isn't being built by people who do what they're told. It's being built by people who are too obsessed to sit still, too curious to give up, and too weird to settle for anything less than extraordinary. The question isn't whether you belong. You do. The real question is, are you willing to be misunderstood long enough to change the game? People love to talk about the success stories, the moments when everything clicks, when the world starts paying attention, when the numbers explode, and the media can't stop writing about you. But no one talks about the beginning. No one talks about the weird ideas that made no sense to anyone else, or the hours spent working on projects that looked completely ridiculous. The truth is, the future doesn't belong to the ones who follow the rules perfectly. It belongs to the ones who are different enough to break them. When I say weird kids, I mean the ones who didn't fit in, who got laughed at for their hobbies, who were told to focus on realistic goals. Maybe you were the one obsessed with editing videos all night, learning code alone in your room, making cardboard cities, building things no one understood, or writing stories no one ever read. Maybe you got picked last in gym class, but always finished first in online tournaments. Maybe you were so quiet in class, they thought you didn't have much going on, while your head was full of blueprints for something massive. Let me tell you what school rarely teaches you: how to take your uniqueness and weaponize it, how to turn what makes you different into the very thing that builds your empire. See, most systems are designed to make people fit in. We're trained from day one to color inside the lines, get good grades, obey authority, and follow a track that someone else already laid down. But if you want to build something new, really new, you don't walk the track. You draw your own map. The world has shifted. You don't need to wait for someone to give you permission. The internet has blown the gate wide open. It's no longer about who can get a big company's attention. It's about who can grab people's attention, and guess what? People are tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. They want real. They want strange. They want things that make them stop scrolling and say, "What the heck is this?" That's your opening. You don't need to be cool. You don't need to be perfect. You don't even need to be liked by everyone. What you need is vision, obsession, and a little bit of audacity. The kind of audacity it takes to chase something even when nobody else gets it. The kind that keeps showing up even when you're embarrassed by how rough your work still looks. The kind that doesn't wait for applause, and let's be real. When you start out, there's no applause. There's silence, rejection, criticism, and a lot of doubt. But if you're weird enough to keep going anyway, that's when things start happening. Every massive movement starts with someone doing something unusual. Somebody decides to take the camera and turn it on themselves in their garage, even if they don't have the best lighting or audio. Somebody writes a song that doesn't sound like anything else and uploads it even though their friends think it's cringe. Somebody builds an app, launches it to 0 users, and keeps refining it, night after night, even when everyone tells them to give up. These people don't succeed because they blend in. They succeed because they didn't. The truth is, the world doesn't know how to handle a weird kid at first. You'll get questioned. You'll get underestimated. People will roll their eyes, but here's the secret. Being underestimated is one of your greatest advantages, because while they're busy laughing, you're building. While they're dismissing you, you're learning. While they're ignoring you, you're getting sharper, faster, better. And one day, when they finally notice what you've done, it won't be because you begged for attention. It'll be because you made something so undeniable they can't ignore it anymore. You have to embrace being different even when it's lonely, especially when it's lonely, because the loneliness of walking your own path is temporary. The regret of never trying, that sticks. So if you're sitting there wondering if your ideas are too weird, if your goals are too out there, if you're too much or not enough, don't shrink. Don't dim your light just to make other people comfortable. Your difference is your leverage. There were so many nights when I questioned everything, when I thought, what's the point? When it felt like I was throwing everything into a void. But what kept me going was the belief that if I just stuck with it, if I kept experimenting, kept learning, kept pushing, it would click eventually, and it did. Not because I had all the answers, but because I refused to give up. And that's what weird kids do. They outlast, they outwork, they don't wait for validation, they build in the dark, they train when no one's watching, they obsess over details no one else cares about. And eventually, they emerge with something the world can't stop talking about. So here's the truth no one tells you. The future of creativity, innovation, and influence doesn't belong to the ones who do things the normal way. It belongs to the kids who dared to be weird long enough to figure out how to turn that weirdness into power. It belongs to the ones who used rejection as fuel, failure as a teacher, and boredom as a training ground. It belongs to you if you're brave enough to lean into the very thing that makes you feel different. So if you're sitting there thinking you're too strange, too quiet, too obsessed, or too out of place to make an impact, understand this. You're exactly what the future needs. The world is shifting. The gates are wide open. No one is waiting on perfection anymore. They're waiting on the real, the raw, the relentless. The kid in their room grinding on a vision no one else can see yet. You don't need permission. You don't need to look like anyone else. You just need to start. Messy, awkward, cringy, whatever, because the most powerful force on the planet is a weird kid who refuses to give up. The ones who build anyway, create anyway, fail and get back up anyway, that weird part of you, that's not a flaw, that's the blueprint, that's the code that unlocks something no one's ever seen before. You don't need to fix it. You need to trust it, because what sets you apart today is exactly what will set you above tomorrow. Keep building, keep dreaming, keep being weird. That's how you change the world.